Okay, good morning, everybody. We have about a minute to go before we start. Okay, what is a good volume? Too close? Too far? Is this good for me? Thumbs up. A little closer? Okay. I want to make sure we start on time. So a couple of housekeeping items. By the way, I'm Sally Brummel, moderating this morning. There is no break built into this morning because of school in session. There's no place to put us all for that short amount of time. So if you need a break, you can leave at your leisure. If you head out the auditorium doors and go left to the second set of double doors on your right, they are unmarked. There's no number above them. But if you go right into them, there has the break room labeled on the right side and the quiet room on the left side. So out this auditorium, turn left, second set of double doors on the right. I was told the nearest bathrooms are locked, so they are now unlocked. So bathrooms are right outside here. Okay, if you hit the planetarium turn, you've gone too far. So down the hall before you turn to the planetarium. The same hallway, a little bit past the planetarium. Before we get started, I just want to remind our speakers about taking questions, making sure that we'll try and get the microphone to you, but if we aren't able to, speakers, please repeat the question before answering. So with that, we'll get started. Our first presentation is Bob Bonadurer from the Milwaukee Public Museum.
Thanks, Sally. Boy, loud. Appreciate it. Can I pull this up?
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. All right. So just a thank you for being here this morning, and a special thank you to Mark, of course, and Kevin, and everyone who's helped with this conference. It's been wonderful it's been great so far. We're halfway through, and it's just been a great conference. So I knew it would. So this is me. I'm Bob Bonadurer. I'm the Planetarium Director at the Milwaukee Public Museum. It's kind of a strange planetarium. It was built as an IMAX dome. So we have a nice 30-degree tilt, so we tell all our stargazers, you're on a hillside, and you're looking up at the stars, and it's a very steep hill. I love to take pictures, just a couple sunset pictures from our house, and the next one is a bunch of retired planetarium people are not here. Some of you know these guys. We do a bike trip. These are planetarium directors, retired planetarium directors, except for me. You might recognize Jeff Holt in there, but we do a bike trip every summer, and we just have a great time. So it's we've been doing it for years, and I don't know. I'd just like to share that. Bart Benjamin's not here. He usually comes to the conference, so bummer. This is where I hope to move in 4 years. I've been showing this picture. Some of you may have seen it on my phone, but we're going to build a $240 million new museum and planetarium. And this is the conceptual design by Enid Architects, who built the Shanghai Astronomy Center. And the planetarium is going to be down on that kind of bluish cove there on the lower left. That's not a window. It's going to be some sort of stellar suggestion, galactic, if you will, that the planetarium is right there in the corner. So it's modeled after an estate park, some rocks that look like that. The architects took a tour of the state. And anyway, it's just a beautiful building. We've raised $140 million. We got 100 to go. And we hope to open in 2026. So my talk here today is stars in their eyes and what is in their brains. What is in our audience? We have to know our audiences. One of the biggest things, right, as planetarium teachers, fourth graders, as many of you know, are very different than fifth graders, and all the way, through the spectrum of our audience. So I just wanted to do a simple survey. This is not. It's very simple, as you're going to see. Look at what we do to get them to fill out the survey here, because people generally don't want to fill out surveys. At least I don't. And so we ask them to take a minute, maybe two, and to do this survey. And so here's the survey. It's real simple. What's your favorite space topic? Mark only one. Do you think there's life beyond Earth? And intelligent life beyond Earth. So we want to get people to know the difference between the two. And then this one, what type of show do you like better? We do both a live show, current stargazing, and we do planetarium films or topics, a canned show, if you will. And then we asked them, just curious about this whole Milky Way thing, because no one has seen, a lot of people have never seen it before. And then just some basics, again, fun survey. And then we wanted to do an open-ended question. What do you love about space? It's kind of the same as the first question, but we wanted to draw it out a little bit more. And then, what's the weirdest thing we've discovered about space? And it was interesting. And then I didn't want to get into the whole demographics. Are you a kid, a young adult, or a wise adult? And just kind of to see where they are in the spectrum. So this is generally after they've seen one of our shows in the planetarium. That's the shows that we're playing this summer, or our live show, which we just call Wisconsin Stargazing. So they've seen a show. The survey's up there at the after it. So I'll start with the kids' results first. We had 80 respondents for the kids. We had about 200 total. And the favorite thing, Northern Lights, is at the top of the list. Black holes and planets you might expect to be up there, but I was kind of surprised that the aurora was number one. And just to note, look at where eclipses rank. Eclipses don't sell. I've been telling, at least the word doesn't sell to our audiences, I don't think. So we're going to make a show, hopefully, that will be as to the eclipse. So they believe in life, and some made the distinction between life and intelligent life a little bit. And you can see, right down the middle in terms of the live show and the canned show, the film. And of course, we've been debating this forever. What's the better show? And there's really no answer to that. There really isn't. Each is good. It's got to be a good show, whether it's live or whether it's... And look at how many people have never seen the Milky Way in kids. Look at that. It's huge. And the kids rate Earth number one. And I just had to put, someone had to put the comment with Uranus. Hee. They actually wrote that. Constellations, as you might expect, Big Dippers, the Zodiac, and a few tokens up there. Someone put the Fox. That's kind of wild. Kids love, so this is the open-ended question, remember? Open-ended, what do you like? You can look at these results in the proceedings bar. We don't have time to go over it all. And I know some adults, parents were coaching the kids on the answers. Okay, I get it. Kids not going to write antimatter, but I know they're doing that. Tardigrades can live. Some kids know it. The precocious kids are going to know that. Mars sunsets are blue. The cow jumped over the moon we do that, and we have the cow come out and jump over the moon while they're seeding stuff, and they just love it. So, all right. So the young adults, 45 total respondents. Northern Lights, number one again. Different age group, or how they identify it. Eclipses got 3 votes this time. In these life questions, that's the national average for, what do you think the national average life is in America? Anyone know? It's about 60-65%. Surveys that think life is out there. So these are higher, but they're visiting a planetarium. Again, the live show is equal, pretty much, and a lot have never seen the Milky Way. Mars is now the favorite planet. Earth took a second place. And again, Zodiac and the Dippers. What do you love about space? The open-ended question. Sound. No one can hear you scream. So you get these things that they have, diamonds, all of this. It's just kind of to know where they're coming from. So I wanted to just kind of in the survey to document, because we don't get a chance to always talk to our audience, at least we don't. We're in a big public museum, natural history museum, so we don't get to talk to them a lot. And it's the way to kind of just talk to them and see what's in their brain. People still want to know why Pluto's not a planet. So. All right, the wise adults. Northern Lights, number one again. We're a northern state, Wisconsin, pretty high in life. We got some God responses. Sorry, there are no aliens, you know. I don't know if I put their exclamation point in there. But we got lectured a little bit on that, which is fine. I mean, so nothing to it. And Earth goes back to number one, and Saturn takes second place. 5 minutes? Okay, thanks. So, you know, typical answers, what they love about it, so vast, so big. You know, and we do this all the time in our shows. Those first three you could almost lump into one. I mean, so not much different there. I love the humans haven't screwed it up yet. So this is kind of what they wrote. You know, the smells like raspberries, I had to Google that. And there was a thing. There was an article. It was a science article. That something out there in space smells like raspberries. Because something like that just couldn't be thrown in there. So someone remembered that. And now I can't even remember what it was exactly. It smelled like raspberries. But pulsar is more accurate than time watches. Our audience is going to know some pretty cool facts that we might not even be aware of. And so we always have to remember to be humble. I love that. You take far too much liberty presenting this. It's not true. They were talking about aliens, and we didn't even say aliens exist. But that was a rebuke on that. So what did we learn to kind of sum all this up? Pluto's still a big deal, ranked very high. Not many kids see the Milky Way. Planetariums are essential for that, to provide that experience. Northern Lights, number one. Why? Maybe partly because we're a northern state, partly because in our live stargazing shows, we tend to always show the aurora. We have a thing that we show for 30 seconds or so, and sometimes we'll go to the sun and show a people still like the big good mystery. Thanks, universe. Live versus recorded, still a tie game. Because I did a survey years ago, and same result. It was 50-50 on the type of show that they like best. And you can see the life is very high. Visitors know the darndest thing. Zippers and Zodiac are the favorite constellations. Saturn is still big. And what's the number one? People still love the Earth. I know the young adults, but overall, if you take all 200 responses, Earth was rated the favorite thing. 2 minutes. Okay, I think we're about done. Well, I put that. So, all right. So thank you. Questions? Anyone? Martin? No, if you didn't hear Martin, he's comparing who hasn't visited a planetarium. See those answers. That's a good idea. Contact my research staff. I have one. Anyone else? And how old I am, so younger. Why didn't you just do QR code and have them do it on their phone? And I'm like, which was a great idea, but here I am counting all the papers and everything. Yeah, one more. Will we change our live shows? A little bit. I mean, we'll keep showing the aurora. I mean, I give my educators a latitude. Our sun's live show goes from sun, and you got to show planets and Big Dipper and North Star. But then they have a whole screen where they can do anything they want. They can do meteors, the aurora, they can go to deep space and come back, they can do anything they want. So I've told them to, do the you know. Sometimes I know they're not doing it, and I can't be there to watch them. And I think we all pander to that. We ask the audience, what do you want to see? So we don't sit behind the mic. Then we ask them, what do you want to see? And Pluto comes up all the time. And we zoom up Pluto with Saturn.
Well, let's give Bob another round of thanks.
Thanks, Allie.
And the next presenter is Jesica Trucks from the Abrams Planetarium.
Hello. So today I'm going to be talking to you about captioning options. Dome. Captioning is important to make our planetariums accessible, and we want to make it ubiquitous. So we want to get captioning in every planetarium. And in the past, in a few presentations, options, whether they be papers or posters. But without captioning, many in the deaf and hard of hearing community will only have a purely visual experience. And the context of the planetarium shows. How did we execute this study? So we spent a week at Cal Academy, Morrison Planetarium, testing 3 different captioning options. We spoke with 10 individuals of the deaf and hard of hearing community, but we also talked to 2 ASL interpreters. And so we ran the show twice on different days. And for day 1, we did a handheld device as like a small phone or a large phone or a small tablet. We talked to 1 person that was part of a deaf hard of hearing community and 1 interpreter. In day 2, we tested Epstein glasses, which are accompanied with a tablet. And on that day, we had our highest number of individuals. We talked to 6 individuals who are part of the deaf hard of hearing community, and we also talked to our ASL interpreter. And on day 3, we tested captioning on the dome for the big astronomy show. And we talked to 4 individuals and the ASL interpreter. So day 1 was a handheld device. So there are certain pros and cons to a handheld device. The pro is you can change the size and location of the text on the device. You can also caption in multiple languages, which is important as you're watching. Granted, moving the device as you're one of the cons because it makes your arms and your shoulders hurt. And it also takes away from looking at the show a little bit because you're looking down at the device and the show, which they're losing part of that immersive experience they're watching. And there can be some uncertainty on where to hold the device, whether you have it down as you're watching. Some other comments that they had made is they'd like to have something to hold the device for them, that maybe they could sit on their chair and still have it up in front of their face as well. Day 2 was the Epstein glasses, and there's a picture of the Epstein glasses up in the corner. They're a little bit bulky. You're looking with the Epstein glasses, which one of our individuals found she really liked. Able to look around and the captions followed where she was watching the planetarium show. And you can also caption in multiple languages, including ASL. The con was that we had a high fail rate during our test. Our second 2 out of 5 devices did not work. And so those individuals either had to use the attached and just spent the time watching the show. So he lost the context of the show. Work well with individuals who already wear glasses because they have to sit on the bridge of your nose. Otherwise, you have to keep adjusting them, which they found it very inconvenient. They also, I don't know if you noticed, but they have a very large black frame, including black frames in the middle. And so it was blocking some of their view of the screen. Also, right here in the center is the window for the captioning, and it also was a little bit dark, and so individuals meant the images behind, so they kept having to move the glasses. And one individual said that the glasses sort of made him feel like a robot. And so it was making him feel kind of exposed and uncomfortable. Third day, we tested captions on the dome. This is the captioning option that they are most familiar with from watching videos, as well as some of the movie theaters. And you also have the ability to have those captions so other individuals who don't identify as DHH can actually use the captioning as well. In one of our surveys, someone mentioned that they liked the option of the captioning because it allowed them to understand what someone was saying if they had an accent. But the con for this, you can only caption in one language at a time. And when we tested, they were white captions with a small black outline. Captioning and the white color made it easy to read when we were in dark scenes in big astronomy, but when we were over the landscape of Chile or some of the cutouts of the telescopes, it made it really hard to read. And we had the captions at the bottom of the screen, which most of the action in the show is going on in the middle or the top of the screen. And so having to look down constantly to the bottom of the screen was causing them to lose that immersion. Other comments for making this captioning option better, since this was the captioning option that most of them stated they preferred, at least in a couple of the shows. They prefer larger captions. They'd also prefer them to be in a different color. So they suggested yellow or amber captions would be the best for in more than one place. So having them maybe the top outside of the field of view. And again, they would prefer captions in yellow or amber. They said that white is too abrupt and slightly harsh. But they also stated that captioning should never be in red. One individual mentioned that it was an angry color. And the captioning should be large enough to be easily read, because there are some in the DHH community who are also slightly visually impaired. So having the captioning large enough so that they can read it easily. And they also mentioned, one of the interpreters specifically mentioned that the captioning should also be available in ASL, because especially the younger population of the DHH community are not entirely literate in English as it's their second language. So having that option would be a and also during our test, there is a safety briefing. Morrison Planetarium has a large tilt and stairs. And so we had ASL interpretation for our interviews, so we also utilized them during the show for the introduction and safety briefing. But if you mentioned that if there hadn't been an ASL interpreter, they would have been completely lost in where and how to. So having that option maybe in a video that they'd be able to watch would be appreciated. But they also stated that pacing in making a planetarium show is important. So there are breaks in the show where they can know that they can look around since the captioning has dropped off the screen. Having a consistent roll of captioning, because then they have no way of looking at the show. So pacing is important. But all individuals appreciated that captioning was even an option. Many of them had been to planetariums before, but captionings weren't available. And so it turns into, as I said, a purely visual experience. 5 out of the 12 said captioning on the dome was their preferred option, but anything is better than nothing. And then most of our individuals agreed that those yellow or amber captions would be best. And captioning on the dome would probably be for most domes to implement, as you don't have preliminary results, mostly on the pros and cons. A more in-depth analysis on the DHH interviews is forthcoming. We also have more information from the surveys that we have yet to analyze. We also did observations and with the blind visually impaired community as they were testing our hands-on activities for big astronomy as they were in the show. So you can look for results or past results for big astronomy research at bigastronomy.org/research, and there's a QR code. I also wanted to mention that coming up in April of 2023, there is a Big Astronomy Day community event. So the film is free or inexpensive to license, and it's available in English, Spanish, German, and French. You can also utilize the hands-on activities and a guest speaker on this day, 10th of April, in person or virtual. And if you would like some help setting up guest speakers, you can go to the link on the bottom of the screen. And institutions who participate will be entered to win a solar telescope. And who doesn't love a solar telescope? Also, please feel free to hashtag Big Astronomy Day. And I believe that's my last slide. Yes, it is.
We do have it still for questions, and yeah, I can run. We'll start here.
In terms of the colors, we do open show. Don't wait for requests, and we have no complaints about it. So the open caption, and we use white, but we put a red. I know red outline around it, and we made the outline thick. And we did a lot of experimenting, and that works for every scene. You can read, and it just works perfect. So in the so it's just
Okay.
I'm just curious if you've done any research yet. Option. We have a minimum of a 20 portion to every single one of our shows. Show is live, including the portion for us.
So yes, so we have not done any live captioning research. Does have so we are planning on maybe doing some testing with some of the suggestions that were made at Abrams, and so that could be a possibility for those tests. But
One question in the back.
Not really a question, just wanted to say that this was super helpful. We're working on the exact same, so the general survey of the different options is really helpful. So thank you.
Any other questions? Yes? I'll my way down there without running. We have a cart board, a live caption system. It does cost some money. We have to reserve it, but we'll do that once a month, so that allows us to do the live part, the instructions, etc. So finding a way to invest in one, because it requires a person to come with it too. But that's worth it to get to that.
Hi, I just wanted to thank you for also mentioning the need for pauses in shows, because I think every planetarium show needs that. We have so many shows out there right now, just constant narration, and people, even if they are not impaired, need spaces in order to be able to absorb and also take in a lot of the larger imagery, and also to create pauses when subjects change, when people know that you're done with one thought and moving on to another. So I applauded that, and I just really wanted to add planetarium shows need that.
yes, and that was a big point in the interviews, is the pacing. And they stated that the Big Astronomy show, the one that they watched with caption, was great with the pacing because the crowd stops and starts.
Any last questions? All right, let's give Jessica a big thanks. One, can you yell? We are actually, sorry to cut that
All
off,
right.
but Yeah, let's talk about it. I think a lot of people would have that question. All right, so now we have Waylena McCully and Wayne Foster for the presentation.
Everybody hear me okay? All right, I'm Waylena, and this is Wayne Foster. I'm at Planetarium in Champaign. Wayne, you are from?
I am at the CERN Northern Space Center in River Grove, Illinois.
All right, so last spring we had a pretty fun event. We presented a program on birding, local birds in our area at our planetarium in Champaign, and we domecast it to the planetarium at CERN. So yeah, it's all up there. Okay, so we're going to look at why we did the birds, why we did the worked, and yes, we're doing it again. All right, so we've been looking for a non-astronomy type lecture type program to do that wasn't a PowerPoint. We wanted something that used the dome. And many of you have met my husband, Jeff Bryant. Hands up if you've met him. Ah, okay, all right. Most of is awesome. I don't know if he's watching live, so hopefully I'm not misrepresenting him here. He does bird photography as a hobby. He's really good at it, and he's got a history of planetarium involvement. He planetarium at Paulette. And do a talk in 2020. We were calling it Warbler Dome, and of course it got canceled because 2020 got canceled. So why domecasting? So in domecasting, what you have is you have all the assets, the digital media, the scripts, the interface, everything is downloaded to the participating domes, but then it is run from the host dome. Yeah, all that. So we've been wanting to do it at CERN, and when I said, I don't know if it was Facebook or what, I was like, yay, Warbler Dome, birds are back on the menu. Well, no, not really like that, but yes, Warbler Dome. And then Chris McCall, who's right there, she said, can we domecast? And Waylena and Jeff are like, I don't know, that's kind of complicated. But then Jeff was like, wait, but Wayne's there. Wayne knows birds. He was worried that somebody on the other end might, something. And ended up working it out okay. And Eric Johnson, who is sitting here in the room somewhere, I don't know. Eric, where are you? Okay, so he's he's there. He's like, yeah, heck yeah, we're going to do this. All right, so that's how we set it up. I set up terrain to fly to different parks and preserves in the area, and we changed the viewing angle because our viewing angle, we have a nice flat dome, so we make everything nice and shallow, but I wanted it to look good in both domes. And so we did a lot of testing with us asking Wayne, okay, how's that look? And we came up with, I think, what was a good compromise. I knew that Jeff would be able to use a laser pointer because they wouldn't be able to see what he's looking at, so I created outlines in Blender, of course. Had to mention Blender in there somewhere. What we did was we displayed 6 bird photos at a time. More than that, it was just too much. And Jeff wanted to be able to open them up, say, hey, let's enlarge this one to talk about it some more. And again, we did testing to make sure. And the testing was pretty fun when we had Jeff and Wayne on there because Jeff talked more with Wayne about than actually practice for it. I set up an interface that would let me skip around if there was Q&A afterwards. So I know it looks very complicated, and I forgot to do the math. It's 36 times 6. That was how many pictures there were. It was a lot. Yes, and Jeff makes his pictures available with it, and you can use those pictures. So anybody can use these bird pictures. Let's see. Oh yeah, audio was an issue. The domecasting setup was not really good for audio, but we were both set up for Zoom, and we set that up as a test, and it's like, holy cow, Wayne, you sound like you're right here in my dome. It was really cool. And I decided not even to pursue anything else for audio. It was a secret Zoom session. It worked great. Yeah, so that is how it went. We charged admission for our showing of it because we do have lecture series, so we sort of use that umbrella for it. And it was a weekday, and we didn't do a lot of promotion for it, but we did a little bit. And, you know, we had 36 in attendance. Not that bad at all. I was very pleased, and Eric cashiered to make it happen. And well, yeah. So how many did you?
Yeah, we had about 12 did not advertise a dome casting test, find out how things worked. So we told a few people there is actually a bird watching class at Triton College, which really surprised me. No, and a few of those students came by and some other people in the community. And we ended up with about 11 or 12. One of them might have been a coat. I wasn't sure. It was kind of dark.
Chris was out of town, but she was checking in on us with the through texting, and she said, "Hey, you should do it again next year." And Jeff was like, "Well, okay, but can I add new pictures?" I was like, "Well," I said, "as long as you swap some of them, because that was a lot of pictures. Be able to see as forest, wild, different types of locations, and what similar birds you would find in areas. That bird right there is not in one of our parks. He drives around to find those in the winter. There's a network of birders that, of course, there are snowy owl sightings. But Jeff's up for doing this one. We'd like to invite people to join in. Definitely we can do it if we're D6, because we're D6 and we're still going to be D6 in this. We're working on ways to make it work with, and there are just some language changes in how the texture, the images are assigned and such. So we're working on that. We're going to figure it out, and we're hoping to get to do one in the future as a dome cast. But I believe you're also working on setting up something just for your birding.
Yeah, so the great thing about this is we're both in Illinois. These birds are for central Illinois, but a lot of the same birds are going to be around Chicagoland. There are some that don't show up as much near where we are. They do down in central Illinois. But I do one for the Chicagoland area. And the thing about the way this dome casting works is I can get all of the scripts and everything that Waylena had put up and use the talk, just changing out the pictures with my pictures or pictures around there. And other people can do that too. So we can turn this into something that everyone can in a specific area, have a localized birding convention for each planetarium would be great.
Yeah, originally I would do like all skies of the different parks and location areas, have them for all the seasons, and Jeff was really protecting bird with its fall. It's like, really? Oh my goodness, these are birds. So I wanted the emphasis to be on his photos for this. And here's the contact information. There is Jeff's Flickr. He updated it last night, and that's where I got all the extra bird pictures. My favorites of his pictures are the ones where they're staring at the camera like they're going to say, like, "Hey, buddy, give me your lunch money," or something. Or where they're like this one, singing the song of their people. And I'm going to hand this over to Wayne because
This specific bird, this is an very bright blue. Favorite birds, because this is the bird that got bird watching. Walk in a forest and this bright flash of blue flew right in front of my face, and I needed to figure out what it was. And it started this whole going down the rabbit hole, looking into what could this possibly be. Figured I was hooked. I just had to identify every bird I saw after that. And so this is the bird that started for me.
our first year in our house, we had an indigo bunting. We had to look it up, and what I think pulled us in more was one day we looked out, and there were 12 of these strange birds that were interested in the same seeds as the Karsten, black, white, and so of course they were the grosbeaks, the red-breasted grosbeaks, and that really sort of nudged us into that direction. So definitely come talk to us. It's a lot of fun, and we were surprised at how well it worked out. And also, if you don't have a Digistar 6 or 7, but you have a neighbor you could drive to, do that. Because honestly, the thing that got me interested in dome casting in the first place was all the times I drove to Peoria to see the dome casts from the Adler to the Dome Planetarium in Peoria. And Jeff and I enjoyed doing that so much, so we certainly wanted to see what we could do with that same kind of technology. And I think that oh, we have 5 minutes? Yeah. Oh, I did talk.
5 minutes
really
for
fast.
Q&A, so let's those hands.
Wayne, on your end, was there?
Said, just to fill in a little bit of time here, the testing, we did a lot of testing. Most of it was just Jeff and I talking about birds and the birds that we saw and the photos that we take and stuff like that. Fun. But there were some issues. There was a bit of a lag on the audio end, and like Waylena said, we kind of pivoted to doing audio through, which solved that well. But for the next talk, I'm sure we'll do a lot more testing, see if that's still the most viable option. Especially if any of you interested in joining in with us, there might be a different way to do that. So everyone is kind of on that lag a little bit. That was really the only issue that we had. Everything else seemed to work perfectly well. And like Waylena said, Jeff couldn't use a laser pointer to point out the birds. It helped that I knew what the birds were a little bit. We had practiced beforehand. Point out stuff that he was talking about that people might not on our end a little bit better. The important thing here is practicing it a lot is going to help. And even if you don't know anything about birds, if we do a couple practice sessions beforehand, enough to be able to point that stuff out. But yeah, we'd love to get more people in this. And you don't have to be in Illinois or that area. These birds are found throughout the Midwest or all over the United States. So we would be happy to have you join in with that. So does anyone have any questions?
This is not a question about the dome casting or anything like that. I need a bird expert because I was asked a question a week ago. Why do geese, swans, flamingos sleep on one leg?
That is a good like to watch dinosaurs. And that might have something to do with it, but it is, I think, you know, I think it is mostly a resting thing. They are able to kind of lock their knee and on the one leg, and the other one can rest, and they do switch back and forth. No, exactly the only reason why or the main reason why. That's just what I remember reading when I had the same question, because it is weird seeing birds just all stand on one leg.
I came in partway through, so I'm not sure if you spoke about this earlier, but I'm curious if you have an angle in your show about fatal light awareness protection. This is concerning birds and light pollution.
Yeah, so we didn't really talk about that when they did that.
Yeah, we didn't really talk about that. There was just different locations. I'm going to mention that to Jeff because one of the locations that he's Middle Fork, which is now a dark sky. So, Jeff, if he can work something in on that, because that's a good idea.
Yeah, and just to add to that, in Champaign, Central Illinois, there is a lot less light pollution than where I am in Chicago. There's a bigger problem in the Chicago with navigation. It happens to geese a lot where they end up staying there too long, and it causes migration patterns. When I do a Chicago-based show, that will be something that I point out and talk about, is that we need to do some light pollution conservation efforts, not only to help us see the stars, but also to help with the wildlife. Not just birds, but all wildlife can be affected by that.
All right, we have just about a minute left. For the transition to the next person, I do have one last question here in the front.
It's not really a question, but birds is one topic for Domecasting. We would like to find other topics for collaboration with middle-sized domes all over the place. So birds is just a starting point. Thing that you'd like.
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, because Jeff and I are both avid birders, it was kind of the natural topic. But it's a way to get other content into the dome, not just content, and birds was a great. But we're doing birds again, but also doing all sorts of other topics. If you want to do something about plants, or we'll figure it out. So anyone has any ideas, we're happy to do that.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, let's thank Waylena and Wayne one more time. And now let's welcome Shannon, Schmoll, and John French to the podium for their talk.
Hello, everyone. I'm Shannon Schmoll.
And I'm John French.
Talk a show that we produced at Abrams Planetarium called Living in Balance on Anishinaabe Star Knowledge. And you go tonight as part of the Full Dome Showcase. So please go check that out, and you'll hear about how you can get it at the end of this. First one at 8 o'clock, so you don't have to wait. Come check us out. So this is a collaborative project that we did with local Anishinaabe folks in Michigan. For those of you who might not know, the Anishinaabe people are indigenous people, different culturally and linguistic groups in the Great Lakes region throughout the U.S. and includes the Potawatomi and the Ojibwe peoples. And so we worked on this project with a bunch of different people. It sort of started off with conversations between myself and Dr. Beth LaPonce, who is formerly of MSU and our Communication Arts and Sciences College. She is a game designer and has gone back into industry. But she and I talked. We wanted to do something for a really long time and finally made it happen. So the sort of general model that we followed was that this was led project. Our role was really that of steward, so we helped kind of take the assets and turn it into a show and kind of give feedback on how this should work within a dome. But our role, but everything is very much led by Indigenous folks. So Beth wrote the game that she created called Through the River of Space-Time. So go check out her website. She's got a bunch of really cool stuff. And she also wrote the original script. The show was also heavily features Anishinaabe, which is the language, particularly the Eastern dialect. Aaron is a speaker and teacher of Anishinaabe, and so he reviewed the language as well as was Okemos Learning Center in Okemos, Michigan, which is door to East Lansing, where MSU is. As well, so he reviewed the language and gave his blessing that the show is ready to go out into the world. We also worked with Dr. who's based out of Minnesota, and she reviewed all of the star knowledge. You might be in the Native Skywatchers program. She does a lot of really wonderful work on preserving Indigenous star knowledge. J.P. Chalikoff, so he got all the recordings of the narration from Aaron and worked with him. Jordan Thomas, aka Exquisite Ghost, provided the music. John did all the Digistar programming and made it look beautiful. And I was mostly there to make sure things got done. And I also reviewed things to be like, let's maybe move this here. The narrative, but that was the extent of what I did. But like I said, we are getting it. If you want it, you can talk to us, but this was led by us. This came again out of conversations between me and Beth. She helped out a group of students that we worked with. We've done a talk on this whole project before, but students created this interactive Ojibwe constellation exhibit for our lobby, and Beth helped them out and did some of the art for that, and so we're like, we want to make a show, so we finally made a show. So we went to the Michigan Space Grant Consortium, and they gave us $5,000 to make the show. We got another $5,000 from Communication Arts and Sciences at MSU. Beth and I gave our time to this. For about $10,000, we were able to make this show because we used a lot of great Digistar programming. But that included time for John as well as stipends for all of our advisors on the show, so Aaron and Annette. The narrative itself focuses a lot on the Anishinaabe constellations, and one of the things that I think really stands out about our show is we at no point mention Western constellations. They are presented as their own knowledge and valid form of knowing and science. And so, and throughout the narrative, the values of living a good life and living in balance with nature are season of constellations, and there are some stories that are shared, but not all of them are allowed to be shared depending on the circumstances of the environment outside. So with them, because you're only talk about it when there's ice on the ground or something like that. So we do not, so it is, that's about the constellations. And then also the moon names are talked about. So the names of the moon, so the Bear Moon, the Maple Sugar Moon, the Ricing Moon, these are just a few of them that are in the show. These are the names that are based on the observations in the environment. So that's been shifting relative to the Western calendar because of climate change. And so that is also something that we discuss about this relationship of the names and the observations, and how there are these observations of the environment are reflected in a dynamic and living source of knowledge. And like I said, we do have Anishinaabe, the Eastern dialect, featured in the show. And the names of everything is always presented first in Anishinaabe if English is shown at all. And it's always, English is always showed underneath. It is largely in English, the narrative, but the names of everything is in Anishinaabe. Like I said, there's also a Western dialect, which is, I think, the more widely spoken one, and it's what's spoken more in Minnesota. So we have a Western dialect version of this made. So I know I've already talked to some of you about that. John, your turn.
Okay, well, I don't have a whole lot to say about it, but I did all the Digistar programming for it, and I did it. What else do I need to say about it? They gave us the audio, and it was really just some separate little WAV files, and I think they must have used
12 minutes.
What?
The whole narrative with the audio file is 12 minutes.
And it was, what's that, Audacity. I guess I had to download Audacity. That's what they used to make it. And it was some Audacity files, and I don't usually use Audacity, so I had to take it into that, export it into a different audio thing, and then they had music, but they didn't specify what music went with what, so I just thought, well, let's that, and so I put it all together.
John playing what he did. We were given straight, like just straight read.
Yeah, there wasn't any pauses.
He added pauses in, like stretched this out into a full 25-minute show. He took all the art, he created these beautiful effects here. So if you see the art, this is all art from Beth, but John turned those into panoramas, and the flowers grow, and he animated it, and it's gorgeous. So John did a lot of great work.
Yeah, and well, wait until you see it before you applaud. I don't know if it's really that great. I mean, it's good. But I will say that so we did Digistar, and if you have a Digistar, I have the files, and we can share that with you. We don't want to put it on the cloud, Digistar cloud, because we'd like to kind of know who's running it. And if you don't have a Digistar, I did save out all of the frames, and I can share with you the frames, but I'll admit that I'm not real happy with the way that Digistar sends the frames out. It doesn't look as good as if you have a real Digistar. Either get a Digistar, or if you want, I'll give you the frames, and then we can do that. What's that?
They're not paying us.
No. Do I have anything else to say? I don't think I have anything else to say.
Go see it.
Yeah. See it tonight.
Yeah. And then that sort of anyone, but we did do 2 showings for Indigenous groups and whoever they wanted to invite, and the response was overwhelmingly positive. People were really excited. Many people felt that it was very powerful to see their star knowledge presented in a science institute. Some star knowledge, and there were many people who bring their children because it's something that they had when they were growing up, and so they were really glad to be able to share that with them. And we plan on showing the show for free to any Indigenous group that comes in. We are running it as a public show right now. We are still charging tickets for the general public, but any Indigenous group that wants to see it will get to see it for free. Anybody else who does that, if you can, to follow suit on that as well. And it is free. Or if we really need to send you a hard drive, we might charge you for that. But otherwise, it's free, and pretty much we've been sending it on WeTransfer to whoever has asked for it already, and I think that's been working fine. So it's free. So like John said, we've got it. If you have a digital scripts, if I'll get you the frames. And this is a Creative Commons no derivative. So we ask that you not change it, that it is charge admission fees if that needs to do. Again, we ask that you offer it to Indigenous groups for free if that is something you can do. And the main area where we are interested in dialect.
Thank you, John and Shannon. You have, yes.
8 p.m. tonight. See the full show.
24 minutes, so.
Those folks. I had two questions. You mentioned how certain constellations can only be seen under certain conditions or at certain. Was there recommendations or preferences as to what time of the year for us to present this to our audiences?
So that Beth and I, you can show the show. I happen sort of to early spring. So taking our portable up to the UP to show the show up there, and we kind of talked that would be a good time. Is okay to show.
Okay. And did you have for us who present things in hour blocks? Did you have recommendations or preferences for what we would include with the Sky content for our live stuff after?
No, I would do whatever you want to do. But I was just going to say, there's only one that we really don't. Puma. Mention the water puma. I'm sure there's other ones we don't show, but the ones that we mention but don't show water. And we do outdoors that used for the water puma. We don't have any artwork for them, so you'll see just the star out, like the little circles coming up indicating the stars. But that's the one that's not shown.
I would have a comment to add on community members. Community is going to be the absolute best thing. So
We have about 1 minute for questions. Next one.
Hi, from Ball State University, in case you haven't met me yet. I really loved your presentation so far, and I can't wait. I have one question. First one. So, with Name EXO, do you know what that program is from the I?
Might have heard of it, but I don't know if I know it. Do you?
Okay, really briefly, you and I can talk about it in depth. About it. Ball State is doing, and you get officially, these would be recognized names across the nation and the world. And Ball State's doing something similar with the Lakota tribe and outreach things that are required in the rules and using a Lakota native if we choose to use the. And I feel that this to talk.
All right, well, thank you, Nicolette. That was really helpful at the end there. Thanks, Shannon and James again.
Just a quick, brief announcement. I've
Sure.
just been informed that the gender-neutral bathroom has been unlocked, so if anyone needs it, they can.
The Michigan Science Center.
All right. Good morning, everyone. As she said, my name is Paulette Epstein, Director of Summer at the Michigan Science Center. I'm also a system ambassador. So we were able to get a portable planetarium through the Institute of Museum Services. So we had a pretty old star lab. It had seen better days, and it had more stars, false stars, than it had real. Just bad shape it ended up being. So the cylinders were getting harder and harder to come by. So we decided to put in for, two and an IMLS grant, and we got both, but I'm only talking about one today. The NASA grant doesn't until, or it didn't start until much more recently. So we have a Star Light portable planetarium, and with this portable planetarium, our goal was to bring the universe to you. So we were bringing the universe to places around the state of Michigan, and when we applied for our so using our program staffing costs, all that kind of stuff, was our matching funds, because IMLS grants are federal funds. Have to provide a match for those, and so tons of time. But it actually, the grant itself, for the itself. So we have done a couple of different types of programs with our portable. We have gone to in the Metro Detroit area, schools and summer camps. We went to libraries around Metro Detroit, and we also went to libraries up in northern Michigan and into the UP. So we have gone to different sites so far, but we'll talk a little bit more about that. So we're trying to reach our grant or our program a little bit late because we were waiting to make its way to us. So we instead of a 3-month time and we have, like I said, Digistar Lite with Digistar 7, so we have the sort of work power of the Digistar 7. And we also have a Go Dome. So we our Go Dome with things. So we discovered there's one of our two of our locations. One of these is the main branch library at another one, I think, is Bowen Library. So our traveling science poster right outside of our portable. We did end up meter dome. It was a good choice and a bad time because there are very few of. So we have to work with areas and schools and all of that taller ceilings. Most of the libraries worked with have taller ceilings to be able. So this is my colleague and our traveling science van. So we load up this van and take these areas. This was actually right before. We took it up to the UP for a week, and we got it into the van because Star Labs were heavy, digital systems. So we actually ended up purchasing a ramp to get have. So here is an image inside of our dome. So this was one of the first schools that we did. I think it was Cornerstone. At the very end of the school year, they were having their final presentation of. So we got the dual chassis system, and this is actually an inner city school. These kids have not seen the nighttime sky. The like. They had a really fantastic group. It's good to make sure that you know how old the kids are going to be. Is when we through 5th grade, and it ended up being through 3rd grade. So the nice thing about the digital system is that we can actually take pictures inside. And this projector is bright enough to see it, but you can actually, if you want to see this image, you can ask me later to see it on like my computer. My colleague actually doing it inside of the portable. So the show, we have our discovery. We are doing Guide to the Night Sky, all ages, what you can see in the nighttime sky. Expedition Solar System, yes, Carissa, we stole the name and totally changed the plot of the show. So that one is for our middle school students. We're talking about scale of our solar system and beyond. We ended up, the summer reading theme this summer was about oceans. And so we went, okay, we need to deliver programs, we have to do something about oceans. So we did a show called Worlds of Water. Our way. So, solar system objects that might have had water, may have water, and then have water. We have out to in other solar systems to see what another solar. All of these shows available with on the Digistar, available with on the Digistar. When I finish this picture from here on the Digistar cloud for anyone who is interested, and the educator guides will also be available probably by the end of this year. Working really hard on this, installing an exhibit or developing an exhibit instead. So I have not finished the educator guides yet. By the end of this year. So we did use, for the underwater show, we did use, this was on the Digistar cloud, I think this is from ESO, Belize, and that's actually how they walk into the dome, is with the scuba divers swimming above them. So it's kind of a fun, calming show for sure. We've done 9 at one of the libraries. So with the Detroit Public Libraries, we have been also bringing solar telescopes. So we'll have the solar scopes out today and the portable out today. I haven't been able to get to any of those, but already booked at the end of the year, but the school year just started, so we're definitely going to get many more than that. And we have done 3 programs on site. So we did 2 for our summer campers and actually 1 during our annual fundraiser. So it was kind of nice to see all of our donors in cocktail attire walking into our portable planetarium and coming out in their hairs all like static electricity. And, so we have done, we still have a little bit of a ways to go. The program, the funding period for this one ends at the end of this year, but we said that the program itself will continue beyond this year. So outcomes that. So those that are not familiar with the state of Michigan, we have, of course, we have a few folks or a few places that we visited down here in the Detroit metro area. We stopped in Traverse City on our way to the. We went to Munising, Houghton, Ontonagon, and made our way back down on the way back. So we, the Michigan, 83 counties in the state of Michigan. There are other locations around Michigan. We are really trying to bring these programs to both the rural and urban communities specifically, because the UP and in the Detroit metro area, that's the focus really. Hope to next year be able to do some more portable programs up in the Upper Peninsula. So we go up there for 2 weeks every year, able to hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sites up there. So, all right. If you have any questions or want, you can either ask a question at the Google slide thing. See if anybody asked any questions. Nope. That is okay. But also this QR code has my contact information. If you wanted to go ahead and scan that, if you have any questions, you can reach out to me. For we're producing, please reach out. I'd be happy to share them. I'd be happy to share if they wanted to try and create something with their own system. And if you don't have a Digistar, but like I said, the Star Cloud, I'm going to say by the end of the year, I'm going to give myself some time because it's been a very hard year.
And I was wondering if some reciprocal exchange of programs in the future.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Let's do it.
I will translate them for you.
Yeah. So one of the goals of Planetarium is Domecasting, so that we can take the dome into the community and cast programs in rural Michigan. And you might think rural Michigan doesn't really have internet, and that's mostly true. But the libraries always do. That's where the community goes to get high. And so we would love to, as we continue to grow this program, and dome point, like our fixed dome at some point, do Domecast opportunity is with our portable as well. We specifically got Digistar. Other questions?
And this is our last question because we have about 1 minute to transition to the next speaker.
I'm just wondering how the dome held up. All of these places that you've gone to, is it holding up pretty well at this point? I'm very curious about that.
So yes, our dome has been holding up pretty good. We're put it away. Very careful when we put it away. We're careful about the floor. We're like, have to sweep. You absolutely sweep. There's no way around. Like you have to sweep and mop that floor, or you have to vacuum that floor, or we're not setting it up. And very, very careful when we put it away. And we actually purchased a hockey bag on wheels to put our dome inside of. So it comes with like kind of flimsy that because the dome itself is so heavy, like you gotta hoist it into the van and all that stuff. So we got a hockey with on wheels. We can wheel it up and down the ramp that we purchased for the van.
Another thanks to Paulette. And now I'll introduce Sara Schultz and Jacob Karsten from the University Moorhead.
All right. Kind of nervous, so don't judge me harshly. Thanks. All right, so this is laser camp from AVI, not ATV. That was a don't know what happened in the schedule typo. Laser camp from AVI. I'm Jacob Karsten. I'm a grad at MSUM, Moorhead State University of Minnesota, and I'm being assisted by the Dr. Sara Schultz. Five-day-long camp that is centered around a 3-watt RGB laser diode. Nothing crazy. And over these 5 days in the camp, the students learn about different properties of light, explore the science, the physics, and all things in between about light. And over the course of the week, they get to create their own show with the laser diode. So they learn different properties, they start to incorporate things into their show, and they, at the end of the week, get their show, if you will, to their peers. So what do you get when you purchase Laser Camp from AVI? You get this really wonderful kit that comes in the size of a pizza box. If you were walking around in the sponsor hall, you probably saw it. It's a wonderful kit. Something to note about it is that you can, everything in the camp you can do from these kits. If it's not like a printout or anything, those come as a piece. All the that you can do with everything in this kit. They're very well thought out. Some of the activities included when you purchase the camp, it comes with activities to go through with the kids. It's centered around 6th to 8th.
Yeah, like middle school.
When you purchase it, it's 6th to 8th grade, middle school area. So a lot of these activities are centered around that age. This last summer, MSUM has been working with the camp in a number of different ways, making it, that's always a struggle. The age, we thought middle school target, but we wanted to make it for younger ages and for even college level. And then we needed to also find additional labs. So the first task, if you will, was to take the binder that you get when purchasing Laser Camp, and we converted it into a slideshow. The reason we wanted to make it a slideshow is that it seems easier to distribute than a binder, if you will. We can throw and just kind of, you don't want to go back to reference it all the time. And if you have a slideshow, kids can read it. You can display it doing the demos, and they can reference back to it, and they don't have to ask you. This also gave us a chance to polish things that we thought could use a little polishing, or sift some things out. Expanding the age ranges, making the camp available to a wider age group. So what we did is we broke it into 6th to 8th grade, 9th to 12th grade, and then college level. The lower two sets, so 6th, 8th, 9th, 12th, have the same basic structure as that it consists of a camp, and you have resources, and you create a show, but the level of difficulty in the labs and demos jump. So, and then college level is more of a lesson plan. We did this because college professors usually have their own lesson plan. Like, they don't want to veer from a ton. So we wanted to create something that was more modular, so you can just pull, they can just pull from it and incorporate it into their own material. Here's a kind of basic layout. This, like I said, the 6th to 12th is pretty similar in what you would get through this structure. And then the college level stuff is a short lesson plan, some instructor notes, lab guides, and material lists. So was expanding our experiments. The college level stuff is obviously more difficult. Like, I'm an undergrad, so it's kind of incorporating my labs that I thought I really enjoyed and could be mixed in with the light aspect. I'm really good buddies with our optics professor, so he was like all for this. So he gave us a huge list. This is like scratching the iceberg here. And yeah, many more. We also presented this presentation in the summer for LIPS, and we got a bunch of recommendations there, and that was very good to see.
So if you have any ideas that aren't on this list or you'd like to add, please let us know.
That's later.
Oh, sorry. I didn't read through the slides.
Yeah. We're still working through the different slideshows. They are quite extensive. When we converted the binder to a slideshow, it was 52 slides. So it was very long, and we wanted to break that down a little bit because it is a week long, but 52 slides is a lot. So we're breaking that down, and then we're also organizing into a folder structure. So you get one big folder, it starts you on one page, it says start here, a whole write out for it. It tells you what age group you want to go into, it gives you all the resources you need. It also has all the original resources that we got. Yep. And then what's the plan for the future? Continue to work through the slides, adding more labs. We want to have a finished product in the near future. Production has slowed down just a wee bit because class started for me, and it's very labor intensive, but hopefully that will change in the near future. Dr. Schultz. If you have really enjoy and has to do with optics, or light, if you will, please contact us. Send us your ideas, send us an experiment that you like, or something like that. Or if you just have any other general questions that we don't get to before this. Wow, I really sped through that.
Yeah, that's good, that's good.
Yeah.
So one thing I wanted to mention too was that this kit is usable out of the box. So AVI has done a great job developing it. We just wanted to play with it more and see what we could do with it. So we kind of just wanted to push it beyond what it already was. Really all about that, so she was excited that we were going to play with it. And so yeah, you can get it just in the box, you can go and do but to make sure that the students have the opportunity to really get to know it so that they could be the ones who are facilitating the camps and figure out ways that they can use it in their research, and we can expand and use it across our university as well. It's for me, the hope is that it's and just like a revenue generator for our planetarium, but also getting unique experiences for our college students. So getting music, art students in there, getting physics students, and I mean, just kind of running the gamut and getting a bigger cross section than we normally would get. So anyway, perfect.
Yeah, and then, yeah, questions and comments. And I also left Joanne's email.
All right, thanks. Yeah, we have plenty of time for questions. I'll make my way back there.
Jacob was super nervous. We give him a round of applause. But he did a great job.
Hi, I was just curious to the length of the programs that they do. Is it one song, 2 songs?
To do, but I think it's mostly geared toward doing like one song. But I mean, if you've got a few songs, they're really gung ho, and it depends on how many students you have too. So you can get as many kits as you need. There's a basic bundle for the equipment, 9 children, students, whatever, and so you can get as many kits as you want. And our goal 30 students in a class. And so we'd have like that we'd be able to have them in to work on that stuff. So if you have just a handful of students, they could have a more extended production if you wanted to.
Hey.
Hey, Mike.
Maybe a weird question, but I don't know. Like things that I was thinking. You put any in front of a student, and they're just ooh ah with it. This is fun. This is cool. But in a way, that's what they're supposed to do in making a laser show. So, like, was that a challenge? Was it not, like, of the students just goofing off with the lasers versus making a show, and, you know, maybe it just worked good because it brought their enthusiasm, or did you have to, like, really curb them in wrangle them in or anything?
So we have not actually run it with camp yet. Summer was just for development and getting us ready to be able to be running. We'll see, and we'll let you know. My hope is that, you know, the enthusiasm will carry them through, but yeah.
I would like to add to that. We've done a few events for like Society of Physics students at Moorhead State, and we've displayed the kits and we said, have fun. And it was actually pretty educational. They learned a lot of, especially like diffraction. A lot of people don't know about diffraction, where you can split apart a bunch of photons, nitty gritty. But they actually had a lot of fun with it. It wasn't a lot of just goof. Something that I thought you were going to go to is safety. We also concern safety a lot. These lasers, I recognize the lasers, can be very dangerous. Don't do things properly. And even the small laser pointers, you can still blind yourself if you do it wrong. So we do express safety a lot.
Jacob, for actually bringing up students, because I am president of my chapter at Ball State, and I was actually going to ask you and email you guys later, of course. What are your thoughts on the cost effectiveness? I'm aware that there's probably ways I can contact SPS and ask for maybe a grant or some help with that in my department, but I'm looking for ways maybe to wiggle that in and have that as an SPS used resource.
That's a tough one because, so for us, the way we were able to leverage it was, we already have like a summer camp system. It's called College for Kids on our campus. And so they, physics department invest in it. So we got money from various locations around campus that could see themselves using it. And so if there are other departments or groups on campus that you think that might be interested in using at some point in a lab or in an outreach experience or something, that would probably be your best way to do it. Otherwise, grants, of course, is, you know, that's a good way to do it as well. When they first took stuff out of the box, they set off the fire alarms in our, and they're like, are we gonna get fired? I'm like, no, I'll take the brunt. If I get fired, well, it's fine. The fire pretty cool. So I said, come back and check out the dome.
All right, we have 1 minute left for a quick question. Have one before moving on to the next.
I'll use this microphone because I'm right here. I wanted to ask you about as far as like programming and what you're doing, because at my old starting to toy with using the Cove lights for kind of a lighting demo and the RGB and giving kids a filter, and I wondered if you were plans on utilizing maybe your Cove lights or your Planetarium system to like supplement that program?
Absolutely. That I've wanted to do for a while. We're still kind of figuring out how to do more programming with our Cove lights. This would definitely work well with that, because I mean, you're talking about one of the examples is the M&Ms under the light.
Let's give another big round of applause to Jacob. I think everyone will agree you did a fantastic job. And of course, Sarah. Great job, Sarah. All right, so our next presenter, we'll give her a moment to get up to the stage there. It's Jennifer Sellers, so let's bring that over.
Every time I try to put it into slideshow mode, it completely like crashes. Uh-oh. Do you go from here? Yeah. What's wrong with it? Where are we? And then it's over here. Where is it? We do not. Should have thought about that. Okay, well, we don't have an audio connection. But, oh, and also, why aren't we? We'll bleep up. Okay. Nothing? Now you
All
do.
right. Yeah, Marshall, it doesn't. But maybe we'll get lucky. Hello, welcome. Thanks for coming. Oh. Okay, yeah, we can do that during the audio part. Okay, so I'm going to talk about engaging students in soundtrack composition during a summer camp. So I'm in community college. So I oversee our nature center, the Eileen Collins Observatory, and our new Digital Dome Theater, which is what you might call a planetarium. Since 2016 is a summer camp that's entirely for middle school girls. And we call it Full Steam Ahead. And it's science, technology, engineering, art, health, and math. So the therapy dogs come in, and obviously that was probably the most popular workshop. So they are on campus for 8 hours a day for 5. We do offer before and after care, and they get lunch on campus. And so it's a whole college experience where they go from class to class. The workshops are all led by faculty and more recently some community partners. So some other nonprofit organizations come in and do presentations, or in the case of this year, Corning Incorporated came in and did a couple presentations. It's low cost, so we get a lot of grant funding and we're able to offer scholarships for about half of the students. Otherwise, it's $100 for the whole week. They do get lunch, they get snacks, and they get t-shirts. And it was 4th and 5th grade the second week, 6th and 7th grade the first week. And I'm a little bit flexible on what that means. So we had some students who had just completed the 3rd grade and were going into 4th grade, and then some who had already completed 7th grade were going into 8th grade. But they were divided in that line of 4th and 5th and 6th and 7th. All right, so what did we do? So right away, when the new Digital Dome Theater opened, our music professor, Will Wickham, who is a professional composer, was like, this is going to be so cool. I know there is something that we can do in here. And so when I sent out the announcement about looking for faculty for Full Steam Ahead, he goes, I want to do something in the Dome. I don't know what. So I had only just learned how to use it. Let me tell you about this thing called Show Builder. It'll let us add a sound. And he looked at it and he's like, yeah, I think that this is the way to go. It's going to be really fun. It's going to be interactive. We want it to have meaningful contributions both on the soundtrack
backside as well as on what's on the dome. Here is, hopefully will work. Yeah, I don't know where the speakers are.
Right in the back. Is your sound up all the way? Yeah.
Sounds up all the way.
Okay. Do you want to start the slide over?
Okay, so that was just one scene from the show, and I will tell you how we got to there. So we used Show Builder to crowdsource the creation of the show with the older group. The older group, Bill and I had this idea. We were like, well, we want to fly off of the planet, and then what happens from there is up to them. So we let them kind of decide that, and I very quickly in Show Builder was adding the scenes as we went through. Interestingly, after we saw Bob Bonaduerer's presentation, the girls all chose the Aurora. They wanted to go visit the Aurora, so I guess it really is that popular. So we created that real quick. It's about 4 minutes long. Sound. Will then came in and he presented a lesson about why sound is important in films and commercials and everything, like what it's used for, why we would care. He divided them into small groups and gave them each a scene while I tidied up Builder so that it would flow. They had tablets that were preloaded with a mixing software, 15-second segments that Will had already created. So he had created all of these sound segments that would go well together. There was no overlap, so that was kind of crazy. Themes to them, so they would sound well when they were mixed together in various orders. So that's what they did. They came up with those, and they came back together and saw what they looked like together, and were able to make some final edits. And then we played it all the way through. They edited it a couple more times, of course, especially our final group. They wanted it to be like a really dramatic ending, so they did that. And then I shared it with public shows for the entire month of August. So right before we did our public show, we would watch this 4-minute clip. What happens in the show, start off about noon that day. We set the sun. We come to astronomical twilight. We rise off of the Earth. We rotate in space for a little while, and then we zoom down into the aurora, and then the aurora is like all surrounding you. So a pretty show to go with a pretty soundtrack. It's all very haunting sounding. And girls liked it so much. Even like a week ago, one of the girls came with her parents and was like, "Can we see it again?" They were all really excited to be able to show it to their parents. Wanted to show it to like anyone in the world who would watch it. So then what's next? So Will really liked the way that it went. And so he was like, well, I want to do it for my classes, but I want them to write their own music. So we've got a composition class right now. It's a small class. There's only, I think maybe like a dozen students. And it's a 20-minute show that they are animating or making a soundtrack for. And it's a meditation, so this one's got an extra layer that it has my narration of the meditation. I happen to be certified to teach meditation and yoga as well, so that's something that we'd been doing once a month anyways, so then having one that was more permanent than my just turn the stars on and lead a meditation. So that is going to be loaded onto the cloud when it's done. For their break week, and they watched the show again. Have a rough draft. Planning to debut next week with the show for me, and then we'll go from there, making some edits with the goal of it being done. So now here's another clip from the show. And apologies for the cell phone video. I really didn't know how I was going to record it so I could show it in this flat presentation.
You have 5 minutes.
So now it's question time.
Hi, when you were working with these, with the students, like with the show build and everything, did you have a lab space set up, or did you just have it crowded around in the dome?
We had them crowded around in the soundtrack. Because they were listening to music and they all had different music, we divided them into different spaces. Each had a tab.
Thank you. About your meditation scheme, you said once a month only. Is that meeting the needs of your students, and how well is it attended?
Good question. So once it started, we've just been doing it once a month because it fits in with my schedule. Students can sign up for my class, though it meets twice a week. So they have that option as well. And then bi-weekly, I do wellness tips for across. So our students, though, need more counseling.
The Aurora is such a compelling visual for them, but I'm thinking like in the orchestra you have the planets, Mars, Venus, and all that, and I do wonder what they would do with that, like if they were to try to visualize the sound for each of the planets. So you have Jupiter, and it transitions to Saturn. I'm just curious what you think about Aurora is great, but what would you think that they would do differently with planets?
That was something that Will and I talked about and that we really wanted to do. But for this, because it was just a 75-minute workshop, we didn't feel like we could really do something like that. But with his classes, I think that he's interested in doing that. And maybe even more so with some of the public groups that he works with, because I know that he's a part of the local symphony. So that might be more appropriate for them than our students.
All right, there's 1 minute before we have to move on to our next presentation. Any other questions? All right, well, let's thank Jennifer. And we will finish up our morning with Laser Fantasy. J-Hack, your name was not on the list, so J-Hack from Laser Fantasy. That's all I saw, so, yeah.
Hi, everyone. It's good to be back together in person again this year. Thanks, Kevin and Mark and the GLPA leaders for all their effort in putting this conference together. I'm J-Hack, co-owner and creative director of Laser Fantasy. Cody and I are here to demonstrate our laser show systems and shows.